Let's get into pressure and posture. So first of all, I'm going to talk about posture because it's something so simple that can change the appearance of your belly and also just change the way you stand and present yourself to the world. It can really just improve a lot of things. Posture is something super simple. It's something a lot of us know. Like, so many of my clients come to me like, oh, I have horrible posture. Let's just say this first. There is no right or wrong posture. There's only a variety of postures, and you have to figure out what is the best for you. And you also have to practice those postures that you don't normally stand in, okay? So a couple of the postures that I see most often are this. Okay, so I see a bum out, ribs up, okay? So you can imagine, if we have a belly, our belly now is being forced out this way. So if you're concerned about the way your belly looks, bring it in, ladies, okay? Bring it in. I want ribs over hips, and that all of a sudden brings our belly from way out here to here, okay? So practice that posture. If you feel like you're standing like this a lot, you also might find that you've got a low back issue. Maybe your low back hurts, and maybe you don't pronounce your hips too much this way, but maybe you're always rib thrusting. Maybe you're a rib thruster, okay? So we call this a rib thruster, where you're thrusting your ribs up, and then that can impact your low back. So if you're experiencing any kind of low back pain, or your back is always just, oh, my back is always so tight and chronically achy, that could be one of the reasons. So the first posture is a rib thruster, and usually that means that your hips tilt back this way. I call it the twerk, right? This is our twerk position. So if our ribs are up, our bum is usually twerked, so we have a big hyperextension here in our back, which can cause achiness and pain, but it also causes pressure, which we'll get to in a minute, to be pushed out this way, as does it push downwards on the pelvic floor, and it just makes our belly pop out, right? If we bring it back into center, our belly appears smaller, we have less, our pressure is distributed better inside of our abdominals. It's just a good way to be, okay? So if you're always like this, practice it like this. Another one that I see is this, right? The mom bum, where your bum is missing, your belly is kind of in, but you're slouched, okay? So I see that a lot, right? My moms will stand like this. So if you're standing like this, and you know who you are, right? I'm sure there's only two of you, so I'm sure most of you, if you're watching this video, there's two camps. There's the, oh yeah, I'm this, or I'm this, right? Very few of you will say that you stand with ribs over hips on a regular basis, okay? So if you're a mom that stands like this a lot, sure, your belly's here, you know, it's in this way, unless it's bulging out towards the bottom, which is where a lot of my moms have some issues. But now our hips are under, so our bums can't work the way they should, so we lose our perky bum, so we can pop our bum out a little bit, right? Bring those ribs over our hips. Our belly still stays flat, and now we've distributed that pressure again in our intra-abdominal canister. Why does pressure matter? So let's talk pressure. So I've already talked posture. So these postures, I don't want you to think about them as the best or right or wrong. Again, I just want you to practice postures that you don't normally do, okay? And then I will give you some insight now as to why ribs over hips instead of ribs up or ribs down or hips back or hips forward matters. Because a lot of you are not just struggling with the belly thing. You're also struggling with things like pelvic floor dysfunction. So you pee a little when you sneeze, cough, run, jump, lift heavy things. Maybe it's only during your cycle. So when you're like just coming up to your period, you find that you only leak during certain times of the month. Or maybe you're just leaking when you have stress. And maybe it's not just urine. Maybe you're leaking fecal matter, which is totally possible. Maybe you're leaking gas, like maybe you can't control your gas. Maybe you have things like pelvic organ prolapse, which is where your pelvic floor is unable to support your pelvic organs, so your bladder, your rectum, and your uterus, and then they actually descend into the wall of the vagina, so it causes this like bulginess, heaviness. Sometimes it can feel like something's actually falling out of your vagina, or maybe it's just symptoms that you don't even realize can be coming from prolapse, but you don't know unless you get an internal exam done. So PSA, little free advice here, pro tip, go see a pelvic floor physio. If you haven't already, see a women's health specialist that specializes in pelvic health, get an internal exam done, find out what's going on in your vagina, ladies, okay? It matters, all right? So pressure and the belly, let's cover that first, okay? So when we have a gap here, so a lot of times my clients will come to me and they'll be able to bring their abs together, so they'll be able to approximate really well during exercise. But when they're at rest, throughout the rest of their day, their gap is still fairly wide, okay? So what that means is we have work to do trying to bring the gap together as much as possible. A gap is still okay, but we want to try to get the gap about 2 fingers or 2 centimeters in width, okay? That's what's called a functional diastasis. Again, there's not a lot of details or research that goes into this. This is just the terminology we have now. It's not the best, but it gives you an idea as what might be happening. So you might be able to really get this gap super small when you're engaged or when you're working out, but on rest, you might have a gap. So if you are standing like this and we're pressuring, so our abdominals have pressure just from air, from our internal organs, whatever it is. So if we're pressuring all of that out and we have a gap here, it's gonna bulge, it's gonna dome, it's gonna look like maybe we're pregnant. It's gonna look like you have a belly or more of a belly than you really do, okay? So we've gotta be aware of how we're handling pressure inside of our abdominals. And this goes just in terms of breathing. We wanna make sure that when we are exhaling, we're actually exhaling all the air out from here and on the way up. So what I'll see a lot of times is moms will think, so if you put your hands on your belly, what they'll do, and I'll show you this here because it gives you a really good idea. So what they'll do is they'll breathe in, fill their belly with air, and then they'll blow out, but their belly won't change. Their belly will stay distended and bulging out because they're not breathing out the pressure in the air from their bellies. This is what I want to see when you breathe in. So I want you to breathe in, fill the belly, and then see how the belly changes? It goes out, in. And I'm not sucking it in, okay? I'm not sucking my belly button in towards my spine. I'm simply just filling up like a balloon and then deflating like a balloon, okay? So when we manage pressure better like that, it helps us reduce the appearance of the big mommy tummy or the mommy belly that we all don't like. Let's face it, none of us like it. And if you do, that's fantastic. I encourage you to love your body, and no matter what shape and size it looks like, but also let's face it, it's not fun to have this tummy that we're not used to having, right? And so there's definitely things that we can do to improve upon that if you're unhappy, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to practice breathing in to the ribs, to the belly, and then blowing it all out, starting from the belly. So make your core tinier. Imagine there's a corset going around you, okay? So inhale, get bigger, exhale, blow it all. Imagine there's somebody squeezing you from the bottom and you're blowing it all out the top and out your mouth, okay? Pressure matters. 2, if you're constantly pressuring into the center line of your belly, well, guess what? You're gonna be pressuring into that weakened linea alba, that weakened tissue down here. If you're always pressuring there and you're always like into the belly, well, guess what? It's gonna stay a little bit weakened. It's not gonna have the opportunity to get stronger, to grow stronger, to get tighter, right? And get that tight tummy that you want. So if you're looking for a tighter tummy, which I know you all are, then you need to be aware of pressure, okay? Start with your posture. Take a look in the mirror today, girlfriend. See how you're standing. Then think about the pressure in your belly. Think about how you're breathing. Think about when you exhale. Are you, or when you get off the couch, like if you've got the baby or you've got a kid or you're carrying groceries or you're just getting out of bed or whatever it might be, we use pressure all the time. And sometimes it can be something so simple. Maybe you're in the gym and you're lifting and you're exhaling, but you're really bearing down here, okay? Don't bear down on the belly, okay? Give the belly a break. Allow it time to come together, blow all that air out like somebody's squeezing you all the way out, and then fill that belly back up and then let it go, okay? So pressure, posture, they matter when it comes to having a tight tummy. It also matters when it comes to pelvic floor health, all those things. Pressure matters, ladies. Posture matters too, especially because posture is an immediate improvement on a lot of people's appearance of your tummy. So if you're standing like this a lot and you feel like your belly's always out, well, take a look at how you're standing and you can see immediate results, right? It's kind of a win-win. So let me know if you have any questions about the posture and the pressure.